Hello. In 2003, Laima Bowie organized a sex strike to end Liberia's brutal civil war. Not only did the warlords agree to end the violence, Bowie was later awarded with a Nobel Peace Prize for her efforts. Kenyan women followed suit in 2009, enforcing a sex ban until political infighting ceased. Within 1 week, there was a stable government in Kenya. Hello, and welcome to Echoto. In this episode, we won't be talking about sex, but we shall be looking at boycotts and how they can be used in the current situation in Uganda. A boycott is an act of non-violent, voluntary, and intentional abstention from using, buying, or dealing with a person, organization, or a country as an expression of protest. The purpose of a boycott is to inflict some economic loss on the target or to indicate a moral outrage, to try to compel the target to unobjectionable behavior. Boycotts have a long and important history of contributing to progressive social change as well as succeeding in their more immediate goals. There are two types of boycotts. We have the primary boycotts and the secondary boycotts. A primary boycott is a decision not to buy goods or services produced by a certain company whose policies you disagree with. A secondary boycott is directed at a third party. Here, you refuse to purchase anything from someone who sells products made by a company you are boycotting. For example, in the early 1990s, there was a boycott against Nike. Its goal was to put an end to the human rights violations that were happening in Nike's facility in Indonesia. Now, back to Uganda. There has been talk of boycotts in Uganda over social media, but unfortunately they have not come into action yet. This is a weapon, if effectively used and applied, can help attain a targeted goal. Boycotts require to be smart. In this I mean, they have to be specific, they have to be measurable, they have to be achievable, they have to be relevant and time-bound. In practice, a boycott needs to attract media attention. For example, the MTV Mama Awards boycott, organized by Ugandans on Twitter, attracted a lot of media attention, both locally and internationally. Ugandans pulled it off by posting pictures of victims who had been tortured, killed, or arrested by the regime, with the hashtag #VisitUganda that belonged to the Ugandan Ministry of Tourism, which was promoting the awards. Now, this happened continuously for weeks that followed, to the point that the Visit Uganda hashtag changed the meaning, which forced the organizers to eventually abandon the ship, forcing them to pull the plug on the event. Boycotts can be very impactful. If you remember Colin Kaepernick, who took a knee during the national anthem to protest racism and police brutality. Similar protests were later launched across the National Football League, NFL. In the aftermath of his protest, Kaepernick was not signed by any team. What happened next is that Kaepernick's supporters urged fans to stop watching the NFL games, and a Change.org petition was created calling for a boycott, which gained more than 200,000 supporters. Big organizations like the NFL have been known to only respond to ratings. NFL tried to use its muscle to shut down Colin Kaepernick, but the boycott progressed even further, introducing key personnel. Vic Oyedeji, a founder of Unstripped Voice, a platform that promotes racial, social, and economic equity, wrote in an email that the boycott will only end if Kaepernick is signed to a club. Boycotts continue to be a medium of choice for the marginalized and those stripped of their power by big organizations and governments. Earlier, I talked about smart boycotts. One of the reasons quoted for the success of the abolition campaign in 1807 was the sugar boycott that started in 1788 by the abolitionist movement. The movement encouraged British people, especially women, not to buy or use goods produced by slaves in the West Indies, particularly sugar. Now, around 300,000 people boycotted sugar, leading to a dramatic drop in sales. Companies started selling sugar produced by free people, and the slave trade ended in 1807. In March 1930, Mohandas Gandhi and 78 dedicated followers began their trek in the protest of the salt tax. This came to be known as the Dandi March. They resolved not to return until India was free of the oppression by the British Empire imposed on the Indian people. When Gandhi arrived at the beach in Dandi on the morning of April 6, 1930, Gandhi reached down, scooped a lump of salt and held it high. This was the beginning of a countrywide boycott of the salt tax imposed on the people of India by the British Empire. The target of a boycott should be the people, businesses, and organizations that support the government. To conclude, successful boycotts are down to information sharing and consistency. If the income of any government or organization is threatened, then a boycott has been successful. Happy boycotting.